broadcasting.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Crawley Borough Council's Licensing Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Ashraf, Chair of the committee. There are no scheduled fire drills tonight, so in the event of a fire alarm, please leave the building via the spiral staircase and the main entrance. Once outside, turn left and go to the fire assembly point on Exchange Road. If you are unable to use the stairs, you will be guided by the members of staff to the evacuation lift. This meeting is being live streamed via the Council's YouTube account. The recording will be uploaded after the meeting. Please note that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during the webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published retention policy. Anyone seated in the public gallery should be aware that they may be filmed by the automated camera system and your image may be captured. By entering the meeting room, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcam or training purposes, webcasting or training purposes. Please, will the committee members note that the microphones are in full council mode, so please press the button and wait for your turn to speak. The meeting agenda is available on Council's website. Around these tables sit the committee members who will be considering the items before them and officers of the Council who are supporting the meeting. Please, can I first ask the members of the licensing committee to introduce themselves? Starting from the right.
Councillor Justin Russell for Pound Hill North and Forge Wood.
Councillor Bob Noyce for Southgate.
Is it on? Yeah. Councillor Chris Mullins sitting on the committee tonight.
Councillor Tim Lunn, Broadfield.
Councillor Yasmin Khan, Southgate.
Councillor Nick Hilton, Pound Hill North and Forge Wood.
Councillor Michael Jones, Bewbush and North Broadfields.
Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. Councillor Kim Jaggard from Maidenbough.
On my left side, please.
Councillor Shelley Bushnell for Langley Green and Tushmore.
Councillor Julie Hart for Ifield and Ifield West.
Councillor Duncan Crowe.
Councillor Craig Burt, Pound Hill South and Worth.
Councillor Brenda Burgess, Three Bridges and the Town Centre.
Councillor Tina Balban, Pound Hill North and Forge Wood.
I'll now ask officers to introduce themselves as well, please.
Ian Duke, Chief Exec.
Siraj Chaudhry, Head of Governance, People and Performance.
Chris Pedlow, Democracy and Data Manager.
Jess Tamplin, Democratic Services Officer.
Apologies for absence. Are there any apologies? No. Disclosure of interest. If any committee member has any interest to declare, please indicate now. No. Yeah. So if you have been lobbied on matters relating to any of the agenda items, please indicate now. I, as a chair, declare that I've been lobbied and that I've received the request from Unite for the opportunity to make representation to the licensing committee. Any other? Councillor.
As I'm exercising my right as a member to speak at a committee of which I'm not a member, I am aware that I'm still required to declare any lobbying interests that may inform my decision making. I have been lobbied by members of the Airport Cars Drivers Union branch.
Thank you. Okay, no one else. Minutes. The last meeting was held on 15th January 24. Does the committee agree that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? Agreed. Item 4 is public question time. The next item is public question time. However, any questions must relate to the item on the agenda, and there is only one item tonight. I'll be allowing specific individuals to speak during item 5 who had registered to speak in advance. Those individuals will be able to ask questions as part of their speeches. For practical reasons, the committee will hear the representation from those individuals now. So we will move to straight to item 5, if there are no public questions.
Just on a point of order, can we clarify for people the reason why they're not being given the opportunity to do it at this stage is because they're being given exactly the same amount of time, just on a different order of business? Yeah, so it's just a procedural technicality. Thanks.
Move to item 5 now. Yeah. So we move to item 5, noting taxi licensing concerns at Gatwick Airport. I ask that this item be put before the committee following the taxi trade's attendance at the town hall before the annual council meeting. I have invited representatives from Unite, the Union, and the Crawley Hackney Carriage Association to speak for 5 minutes each on the matter. Speakers should ensure they do not make comments about specific incidents, vehicles, or drivers. Please note, I will not be allowing any other public speakers to address the committee. Please will Nick Wins from Unite come to the public speakers table to address the committee? Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nick Veens. I'm a Gatwick Airport driver and a Unite representative. And I represent, with my colleagues as reps, 315 drivers at Gatwick Airport. I would just like to show, I think more of a disappointment really that the licensing officers are not here. The reason I think that we're being given, there's an ongoing investigation. But in 2024, March 17th, we put in a request to do with Uber's activities at Gatwick Airport. It was an investigation that was given to Kareem Plimpton, who we understood that was taking it on, and we contacted her on several occasions, 8 in total, up until the 10th of June, and the last 2 times that we contacted her, we was told that it will be next week. The findings will be there, then next week the findings will be there. And subsequently, her investigation was done, and we haven't received, which we did ask for, a copy from Dan Carberry and Chris Page when we had a meeting with them on the 31st of May. We was told that her investigation was complete, and her findings were that there was no impromptu problems with Uber at Gatwick Airport. We subsequently turned around and said to them, do you know about the AVA, which is the parking area where they put, and Dan Carberry said no, he doesn't know about the AVA, which is where they're parked. We said, have you read the Uber website? And he said, no, I haven't been given any information regarding the Uber website. Well, I actually have copies of it here for all of you to actually go through. And it actually states here, if I can just read it to you, to receive a trip at London Gatwick, you need to go to the dedicated waiting areas to be placed in a queue. So if you're placed in a queue, that is in a virtual rank. And on entering the South Terminal long stay, what you do is if you turn off your PDA, they said that you will go to the back of the queue. So, and regarding the Miscellaneous Act 1976, Section 80, paraphrase 1, that it is illegal for an operator to actually make provisions in an area they are not licensed. That is in this 1976 Miscellaneous Act. Okay, if you go down to 75/2, there provides no exemption for an operator, but it does for a driver. But if you actually go on the Uber app, if you actually look on it, you can actually see the drivers that are on there. And the ones that you can see do not have a job. It's all well and good that you go in there if you have a job already, which is under the private hire conditions you can do because you are pre-booked. We brought this up in 2020 to Kareem Plimpton, and she just turned around and said to us that they're waiting for a job to be allocated. And we turned around and said, actually, they're waiting for a job to be booked because they are waiting there illegally in an area they are not licensed. They were given that at the Beehive. That's where they were then. We done a protest at the Beehive, then they moved on to Gatwick because they were kicked out of Hawley because of the, their misbehaviour regarding litter and urinating and everything like that. And that is a point of record. That is actually fact. Okay, so now what we're asking here is, where is the findings from Kareem Plimpton's initial investigation? Because we was told at the meeting on the 31st of May that Dan Carberry will be doing an investigation himself with the new evidence that we gave him, but we are still waiting for the initial investigation because we need to see what took 14 weeks not to be provided anything. 14 weeks we waited for the investigation to be completed. Now, we have sat back at Gatwick waiting for this, doing the right thing. Surely the due diligence of the licensing officers is to protect the drivers in Crawley, not just the drivers at Gatwick, the licensed drivers in Crawley Borough Council. That's what we do. We pay nearly £500,000 to be not protected. We are not protected at all. Why is that? Are we just a cash cow? Is that the case? We're just a cash cow. We need help. We need people that are going to be in that licensing department actually for us, not against us. We feel as if what is happening is they're trying to find a way out of it rather than a way in it.
No,
you should be here helping the licensed drivers. That is not happening.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please will Amir Bhatti from Crawley Hackney Carriage Association come to the public speakers table to address the committee. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and all the committee. First of all, I will thank you, all of you, to give me the opportunity to speak in this committee. I'm representing 123 Hackney drivers in Crawley Borough Council. First of all, I would like to bring your attention. After the pandemic, our business has gone very, very down. We normally operate from 3B Station and Town Centre. And Town Centre, few stores are closed. We are suffering from there. Crawley Borough Council, Hackney rank vanished. On the website, there is a Hackney rank, but there is nothing in practical. Now, with only left in 3B Station. 3B Station has 8 taxis rank, and this rank was made long time ago when there were only 30 Hackney carriages. But now there are 123 Hackney carriages, active Hackney carriages. And now council keep enforcing us, keep 8 taxis over there, while we try to make living, we have nowhere to go. And also, we need urgently a feeder park in there. And we always try to help the people on 3BG station to turn around from them, on the roundabout. And we leave space for, 20 minutes parking. Now, as my friend Nick, mentioned earlier on, Uber not only in taking Gatwick, they are plotting in 3BG station. We every day see, we do one job, they do 10. They only not coming there, they sit there and plot in 20 minutes parking and taking a lot of business from Crawley, and they are freelance in Crawley. And they're not licensed in Crawley. And not only that one, the Crawley Borough Council losing a lot of license fees, while other operating in the license in Crawley Borough Council. And also, we complained hundreds of times and took evidence of the pictures of the people parking at ranks in Crawley Borough Council. And people are enjoying their drinks in the pubs, and we wait there to get in the taxi rank. And there's no enforcement. I personally asked Clean Printum, the Crawley Borough Council put the enforcement cameras, and nothing will happen. It's many years now. And not only that one, now we are being asked move taxis from 3B station while the commuter's time in the evening, and we have no space to go. And we'll request to the committee, they should ask in the licensing, and why is not being even replying? And any public member make a complaint, next day we get an email from them. And we are remind them, we are part of public member as well. We are not, just, I would say, from other world. We are a public member, and we ask anything, it's all been neglected. So I will request the committee to, more ranks in Crawley Borough Council, like in town centres, as they vanish. The clubs are closed, many stores are closing down, and we have, and also the new space by the county mall rank being reduced. And every time I ask where the rank is going to be open again in Crawley Borough, in train station, the only answer been given, we are doing work on it, and never had an answer on that one. So every driver is nearly, losing a 60 to 70 pound a week, not being able to work from the Crawley Borough Council. And the private hire in the High Street, and the Crawley station, and also Western Cars on 3B station, taking a lot of business from there, and we just sit there, wait and hope. So I would like, again, the committee should do, as soon as possible, some help for the Hackney carriages. And 123 carriages is a lot, and have you noticed, recently the survey said there are far too many taxis in Crawley. Even we can't make a living now. I've been doing this 24 years. I never felt like that's where we're feeling now, earning-wise. And we got a families to feed. And not only that one, and next door, Reigate Borough Council flooded a lot of their licenses, and they are doing work in Crawley. And many drivers, they are saying, if the license expires, then we do a license from the Reigate, which is cheaper and easy.
Okay.
So I would like to request all the committee members, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I request Zachary to come to the speaker's table to address the committee as in his capacity as a county councillor. Thank you.
Is there another speaker? Is there another speaker from the trade?
No.
Do you want to ask?
Yeah. No. They confirm now.
No. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Chair, giving me opportunity to speak tonight. And good evening to officers and respected committee members. It's very nice to sit on this side as well and not declaring any interest and just say whatever you want to say within reasons, If you remember, Chair, you and me started working on issue of Uber and some of the other issues in the beginning of this year. We had a couple of meetings with officers as well, and we provided them the information about Uber, Free Now and Bolt's operation in Crawley. And up until I think it was April, we were told that the matter is being investigated by officers. So I'm here to ask if you and the rest of the committee and officers can ask the investigating officers to conclude their investigation sooner rather than later. If they need any further information from rest of the councillors, from me, the drivers or reps here, you know, I'm sure they'll be happy to provide that information. I have visited Gatwick Airport. I have taken pictures of Uber base over there. I have taken pictures at North and South Terminal where they have dedicated marked bays as Uber and their driver waiting over there. I think we must not mix two things. Cross-border hiring is something different, but a company operating on our premises in Crawley, under our Crawley Borough Council area, not having an operator license is something very serious, because we have been always told that the licensing regime work for safety of our residents. And when we have a company operating here and drivers which are not licensed in Crawley, company not permitted to work in Crawley and freely working day in, day out, hundreds of Uber drivers picking up jobs over here, we need to take an action, and we need to take that action now rather than later. So that's on the Uber side. And when it comes to Crawley Hackney drivers, they have lost a couple of ranks in Crawley, like the Crawley train station, and they have been asking us to look for a couple of new sites.
If you can just please.
Thank you. So please do consider their
agenda
position
item.
as well. Thank you. Thank you for your.
I have also had a request to speak from Councillor Peter Lamb. Councillor Lamb, if you want to say something now.
Thank you. I believe I'm entitled to participate within the full debate, so I don't necessarily have to limit myself to a single statement. I don't necessarily want to prejudge the debate that members are going to have. I mean, what I would say is, you know, I think like a lot of people, I have been trying to resolve, Hackney carriage and private hire issues in Crawley now, since I think the first time I was approached was in 2012. So for 12 years going around the system. In that time, we have witnessed the system get harder and harder to enforce. In 2014, the switch change towards enabling cross-border hire has made it far, far harder to identify where there is improper behaviour going on within the borough. We have witnessed over that course of time a phenomenal number of licence plates enter into the area that are not Crawley Borough Council licence plates. I know because that whole time I've been keeping my eye on them, and it's remarkable just how rarely you see a Crawley plate now compared to a number of the others. So the system clearly is fundamentally broken at a national level at this point. Now, I completely take on board the instructions that have been issued around not debating the substance necessarily of individual allegations. It is right that the council proceeds in the investigation. It is disappointing that some of these things have not been able to be addressed at an earlier stage, and I certainly would agree with the comments that we want to see this resolved as quickly as possible. And let's bear in mind where the time pressure is around this. You know, we have a private hire branch here that is exclusively allowed to work at the airport. They're not allowed to work outside of the airport's grounds. An airport has seasonal work, so the majority of the work that they're going to be undertaking is being undertaken in the summer months, which are fast approaching. And if they are unable to generate sufficient income over that period of time due to a breach in the rules, then they are going to struggle to make it through the year. So this is a time critical issue, and the committee absolutely is right to apply as much pressure as they feel is appropriate to try and get this resolved as quickly as possible. I believe there are things outside of that that could be done immediately, regardless of whatever the substance of the review ends up being, the conclusion of the investigation ends up being. You know, the vehicles we're seeing come down from London are TfL registered. They have enforcement at TfL who could choose to interact. I believe licensing officers have the ability to be empowered by other licensing regimes as well. Certainly I remember that when Bill Nayland was licensing officer here, he seemed to collect half a dozen different authorities of different councils to be able to enforce on their behalf, which is certainly looking to trying to gain that permission in terms of TfL with so many of their vehicles now operating within the borough. we should certainly be engaging with Gatwick, who, as a private organisation, probably have no idea, what the legalities around this are and whether or not they are potentially facilitating rule breaking at the airport. These are things the committee can do without having to wait for the conclusion of an investigation, is to engage with these different bodies and try and at least get some movement at this point, because it is time critical. Fundamentally, the system is broken. It does require national change. That is something that should be looking to be addressed in the near future. But until that is the case, as an authority, we have a duty not just to the people in this room, but to the public at large, to ensure that licensing rules are enforced for their safety and for the safe operation of the trade within Crawley. And I very much hope that the voting members of this committee are in a position to take some action on that today.
Thank you. The committee is asked to note that the issues which have just been raised are subject to an ongoing investigation by the Council. Additional evidence has been provided to the Council, which it is now considering. Council officers have explained this approach to Unite and will provide updates as appropriate. As this matter is still being investigated, it will not be appropriate for committee members to comment, agree, disagree, or provide any views or promises tonight. Committee members have listened to the concerns raised tonight and may wish to thank you for bringing this information to our attention. To avoid jeopardizing or undermining the ongoing investigation, no views will be expressed tonight and no decisions on the enforcement matter can be made. There will be no discussions about the specific evidence or merits of taking enforcement action. I will now invite any members of the committee who wish to speak on this item to do so. Please bear in mind what I have just set out. Committee members requesting to speak should press the button on their microphone now.
Councillor Russell.
Sorry, Chair.
It's okay.
Can you hear me? I guess it is a point of order. I think we have another gentleman who thinks he was on the list to speak. I don't know if we could just cross-reference that before we move on to the council.
Yeah, sure. I was told there'll be only one speaker from Unite. So anyway, you
Is there another one who wants to speak?
please. Yeah.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, please.
Yep, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues here, the town cards and everything, they all speak the truth. I just wanted to say, don't you all agree the law's the law? If someone's breaking the law, they must be held accountable. Uber are parked in the AVA empty. I was in there last week and I was there for half an hour and took registration numbers to give to Dan Carberry. 1 a minute was coming in and 1 a minute was coming out, while my colleagues were sitting in the crew room for 2 hours before they get a job. It's basically all down to the Miscellaneous Act. Uber are making provisions for the invitation and acceptance of work in an area they're not licensed in. Gatwick is not in London. Gatwick is in Sussex. Uber are not part of Sussex. Uber should be removed. Simple as that. That's all I need to say. Uber needs to be removed and geo-fenced from Gatwick and Crawley. That's all I've got to say, gentlemen. They're breaking the law. They must be held accountable. Thank you.
So if you say we're now going back to the debate.
Right. We are now going back to the debate. So any committee members requesting to speak should press the button.
And it's Councillor Crowe. He's requested. Councillor Crowe is requested.
Councillor Crowe.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I hear what you say, and obviously I will be very guarded in my comments to not express an opinion on the investigation. What is clear is that there is a large number of drivers in the trade who are not happy with what's been going on. People do not turn out in such numbers for a second meeting, as of course we had the protest at the annual council meeting as well, unless something has really got them upset. So I think that is pretty apparent. What I'm not very clear on, and I've got to confess, I'm not overly familiar with Uber. I don't have the app. I've never used one. I'm not sure about the processes and what potentially members and indeed this committee could actually do at some point. I presume we are very much dependent on the outcomes of what the investigation says, but what I'd like to know, if I'm not, because we haven't got the licensing officers here, I don't know if the head of legal possibly could give us a steer on this, is where that investigation is going to report. Is it just going to be a response to United? Presumably members will get to see it as well. And what are the functions of this committee in terms of what we could potentially do? Obviously, without wishing to prejudge what the findings of that investigation may actually turn up, there's clearly some issues. And if it is felt after the findings of the investigation, say, for example, that drivers are still not happy, what potentially could members do? Because obviously we've heard one side this evening, we've not heard an officer side. It would be really useful for members to be able to fully inform, whether that's potentially having maybe a working group to look at those the issues that are arising, and to see what could potentially be done. Because I don't know, and I would like to know. So I think I've got a question, if anyone is able to answer that, as to where that investigation will report to. Will it just report to whoever initiated it, or will the actual licensing committee get to not only see it but potentially discuss the findings at a future meeting? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah, if it helps, the licensing committee don't get involved in enforcement action. Or obviously the investigation. Once the investigation is complete, there would be a decision around whether, for example, prosecution action was to be pursued. If we're talking about, in this case, unlicensed operator activity, that's the allegation. I have to be careful what I say as well. But in terms of the committee, you wouldn't be making any decisions around whether to, or evaluating the evidence coming out of an investigation. The only situation where you might be involved is generally it's delegated to officers to make decisions around operator applications. So if an organisation was to apply to be an operator, normally that application would be considered at officer level, but there are situations where that may be heard by the licensing committee. So in that situation, committee members around the table would be looking at the merits of an operator application. So for that reason as well, members need to be very careful in terms of what they say in terms of expressing an opinion. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. We have been listening, and we are open and transparent about our role as a licensing authority. Enforcement's not decided at committee, Chair's been said, as I know we're aware, and officers do not have preliminary findings to give to us today, but we are taking the complaint seriously, which is why there is an investigation ongoing. Saying that I want to be careful and wish other committee members to be careful, everything I say today is in the full recognition that I do not yet have all the facts in front of me, and it will not prejudice me making any future decision relating to my duties as a member of the licensing committee. And I feel sure every member who speaks tonight will have similar sentiments. But one of the reasons why I support this meeting taking place at this time is that we are approaching a peak time for business of taxi drivers at the airport. And if there is an issue, I think it's in the interests of accountability that they have been heard before then. Also, I think it has assisted the licensing committee to hear directly from those who've spoken to give us a better understanding of what is alleged is happening. I have already passed on my concerns personally on the allegations made concerning Uber drivers' activity directly to the chair of Gatwick Airport. Selected parts of the London Gatwick estate are often made available for commercial advertising opportunities, they have told me, and recently the HSBC contract has ended, and therefore they ran a competitive tender for this contract, and Uber won the advertising contract, which allows them to exclusively brand the interior and exterior of the airport's jetties, as well as brand the pickup area. Gatwick has for some time had more control over its operations when it comes to taxis. However, licensed taxi drivers are not exempt from following the rules of licensing. The relaxation of cross-border restrictions has complicated this matter considerably, as it did when the Cameron Conservative government introduced this deregulation approximately 10 years ago. And I can certainly remember members on this side warning of the potential damaging consequences back then, and appear to have been proved right. However, even under the current licensing regime, no ride-hailing app driver, including Uber, should be behaving in a way that a private hire vehicle is not permitted to behave. They should only leave the private hire vehicle area when they've been allocated and accepted a job and are heading to pick someone up. Anything else, if it were to be happening, would be touting for business and a breach of their licence. Chair, I look forward very much to hearing the outcome of our officers' investigations. However, I believe that notwithstanding the conclusion of that investigation, there are several very unsatisfactory underlying issues which are a direct result of the cross-border deregulation and leave this council at a disadvantage when it comes to maintaining standards locally. I fear that some things presented today have been presented as people saying it's as simple as that. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as that, Chair. Otherwise, we would have sorted it out by now. But the underlying concerns that we have, or the underlying issues, should be a huge concern to everyone on this committee. One thing I very much want to see happen is for TfL to grant CBC officers authorisation to act on their behalf when breaches are raised. This has been done with other local authorities. Indeed, Councillor Lamb mentioned it. I can certainly remember about a decade ago when we definitely reached such an arrangement with Wealdon District Council when we experienced issues with some of their licensed drivers. At the end of this discussions, Chair, I would like to propose some recommendations based on what we've heard, which I hope the committee will support. I suppose the final comment I'd have, Chair, based on the presentation we had today is, although we're considering Uber activity at Gatwick today as the item of business, the Uber activity at Three Bridges Station is a new allegation, as far as I'm aware, and any new allegations, if people want to come forward, please provide evidence with that, and it will be investigated as well, I feel sure. Thank you.
Councillor Burgess, please.
Thank you. I think most of what I'd like to say has been said. I agree with my colleague to my right. I would stop me if I say anything incorrect, by the way. But I personally would like to know more, and I look forward to hearing the report when it comes out. As a local councillor, we all probably have people from the taxi trade who are residents in our own wards, so we must all want to know what's going on for the sake of our residents. And so I really look forward to a greater scrutiny of this situation and to going forward, hearing that report and finding out what if anything, we're going to do. I think, personally, that's a good way forward. Thank you.
Councillor Balvin, please.
I have actually used the airport a lot in the past, and I have come through and waited a while for your services, and obviously with the cost of living, the price of taxis has gone up. In May last year it cost me £22. In September I think it went up to £27. It doesn't matter, but I'm just saying, when I came through, every time there was always a queue of passengers waiting to pick up a taxi. I came through only 10 days ago, and there was a queue for the taxis. I have got a brother that is seriously ill and I needed to get home. So my daughter opened the app, and you go on the app and you do get, I was surprised that it was available, but we opened the app, or she opened the app because I haven't got it, and Uber drivers quote what they're going to charge and you select whichever one. But we do, as a committee, our priority is the safety of our residents, which is why we have licensing, but we also have to ensure that there is a very good service for people arriving at Gatwick, because that is their first impression they get of Crawley. And there have been sometimes I've gone through the airport and I've waited 40 minutes for a taxi. But you know, I'm sorry, I do quite understand that we need standards, but I'm just saying sometimes you go through the airport and there is a long queue for taxis, and I would say to my colleagues that, you know, we do need to perhaps do more scrutiny and actually go through the airport ourselves to see with our own eyes what is going on. I do appreciate the time you've come to talk to us, absolutely, because you've obviously got a lot of concerns there, but without actually experiencing ourselves what is happening there, it's difficult to judge it.
Sorry. Please. No, please. Councillor Khan.
No, sorry. They're not. They're not. Can I talk now? Okay, all right, okay. As a portfolio holder of licensing, I really understand the frustration, and I know where you're coming from. And I give you my word that I will be speaking to the officers. We will have a word with them and see what's happening about the investigation and how far they've got to. Uber does concern me as well, because I worry that they're in lack of knowledge and their training, which we make mandatory for our drivers. They might not be complying with them. So we have got a lot of concerns ourselves about Uber. So we are not ignoring the fact that Uber is at Gatwick. We are looking into it. So that's all I really wanted to say at this stage, that yes, well, we have got concerns, and we want to make sure all our taxi drivers and the safety of the residents comes first.
Thank you. Councillor Mullins, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a permanent member of this committee at the moment, but I have got a long history on this committee, going back many years, including being its chair. And over those years, we worked consistently with the private hire and the Hackney hire in Crawley, sometimes controversially. It wasn't always peaceful, but we worked to standards, and we worked really with the need to protect jobs and to make sure that our drivers were of a high standard and were criminal-free people who could be trusted and to do a good job. And I think we achieved that. And what I'm concerned about tonight and visiting this committee is that I'm very worried about what I'm hearing and about what the future looks like for the moment. I do want to see that report come out pretty soon, because it's quite important that we see justice and we see legality, that we see things running properly. Now, it's not our fault. We can't change government law. And if the government made laws that are disadvantaging our drivers in Crawley, that's something that perhaps an incoming government's got to be approached about, to see that there's fairness and decency put back into the trade. But at the moment, we're in a situation where it seems to me that it's very lopsided. Gatwick have never been that close to us, and we've always struggled with them, to be honest, over the years, particularly in this area. So I do hope we can find a resolve. I do hope that the report, when it comes out, gives us a way forward, that we can deal with the issue, and that we can ensure that our drivers are safe in their jobs and their livelihoods, because that's what's at stake. Their livelihoods are at stake here, and we've got to recognise that. And for any government to enact legislation that puts people's livelihoods at risk is wrong, and therefore that's something that we've got to do. We've got to change that legislation.
Thank you. Councillor Russell, please.
Okay, thank you.
on now?
Yeah, thank you. Like Councillor Mullins, I'm on the committee for this evening. I have done the training and listened to what was said on that training, and I've got to say I'm really concerned about some of the things I'm hearing tonight from our guests from the floor. And not wanting, I will do my very best not to prejudice any investigation, but to hear that there is potentially a holding bay for Uber drivers who are not from the borough of Crawley really worries me, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Like Councillor Crowe, I don't actually have the Uber app. I've never ordered an Uber taxi, so I don't know precisely how it works, but I have seen other people do it. I know that we're awaiting a report, but I think, as Councillor Lamb said, there are things that we need to do. I was glad to hear that Councillor Jones has got in touch with the airport already. I think this is a really big issue, and I'll come back to that why. Not just getting in contact with the airport, but getting in contact with Transport for London. If they've got London-based operators out here, we need to find a way that we can cooperate and make sure they're maintaining to high standards, which brings me to my third point, which is at Crawley Borough, we try to make sure our local taxi drivers are operating to the highest standards. Standards of safety for the passengers, standards of the quality of the car, and we can't guarantee that. Now we come back to why is this situation occurring? Well, because of the change in legislation of 2014 and the general relaxation and deregulation. It's the cost and consequences of the ongoing deregulation that we've seen for the last 14 years. And my final point is, and coming back to the first one I made, is when is a Hackney carriage not a Hackney carriage? Is it when it's sitting in a holding bay waiting for its app to click it round the corner? That is really troubling, because effectively they're acting as Hackney carriages and taking business away from local drivers that are paying for the licence, and this needs to be investigated properly.
Thank you, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, please. Councillor Lennon, please.
Thank you. I have to say, I've been a councillor for 10 years, and I've never seen so many people come to so many council meetings over one particular issue. So I really, your presence and your efforts to try and improve your situation have definitely been noted, and are more so than any other issue, including, some of the times we're deciding on or trying to make a decision on runways and stuff like that. So it's really very impressive. And the only conclusion to draw from that is that your lives have been severely negatively impacted by the actions of, ride-hailing apps, which is obviously, very worrying for us, because, we do live in an airport town, and there are lots of downsides to living in an airport town. We deal with probably more pollution, we deal with probably a lot more congestion, and there should be some upsides to it, and some of those upsides should be, obviously, we have a different range of jobs, and obviously, working at the airport as a taxi driver is one of the jobs that isn't available to, or shouldn't be available to, people that don't live with the consequences of working in an air or living in an airport town. And I just want to come on to a couple of the bits that the officers have said. First of all, I'm treading on eggshells here, because I've been told not to discuss something that I don't know what I've been told not to discuss, because I haven't been given the allegations. So I do find it slightly challenging at the start of this meeting to be told not to discuss allegations, but then not be told what the allegations are. So I think in future we could have maybe slightly better guidance to those councillors on the committee as to what we can and can't discuss. And secondly, we've had, we had the members of the taxi trade turn up at the last full council, and I've still not seen, in effect as a councillor, a briefing note of roughly where we are on the situation. We sort of I think I find out more from, say, Councillor Lamb or Councillor Jones as to what the exact situation is, rather than getting a briefing note from the officers, so I can be better informed. Now, I know an investigation's ongoing and we can't prejudice the investigation, but I don't think I've actually had any comms about what the status of the investigation is. So, and considering the strength of feeling in the town, I really would like to see, personally, a bit more urgency on trying to get to the bottom of this investigation. Clearly, more so than almost any other issue, a lot of the town's residents are very concerned about this. So we should be treating it with the highest respect. I'm not saying we're not. I'm just saying that I've not heard anything either way. And I know we've had a lot of other issues recently with people presenting to the town hall. So I don't mean it as a slight. I'm just trying to say, clearly this is an issue that impacts a lot of the members of the town, and we should be treating it with the highest priority. Just coming on to obviously we'll have to wait for the investigation to conclude. I'm not entirely sure, as I say, what the investigation is actually into, so it would be quite useful to know that so we can get an idea. And I understand while the committee might not be able to act on that investigation, it would still be very, very useful as a councillor, so that when residents get in touch about the investigation, we actually know what the investigation's findings were. So I really would want that investigation to be shared with councillors. My final point is actually a question. I'm a relatively new member of licensing, despite all my years on the council. Would it be possible, and I might challenge the answer, this is a technical question, would it be possible if the council, we were told in the training that the first priority is to the residents and making sure residents are safeguarded from dangerous situations, that's the absolute top priority. If we had significant concerns about the licensing of taxi drivers from another authority that we thought they were not being held to a suitable standard, could we not at that point say, well, we're not going to accept taxi drivers from that authority operating in this borough? And I suspect you might say, we'll be challenged if we try and do that. But my question would be, who would try and challenge us legally on that issue? Individual taxi drivers are not going to take Crawley Borough Council to court. So either we're going to say another borough council or licensing authority is going to take us as a council to court, which I severely doubt any council's got the financial or legal wherewithal to do, or it'll have to be an actual operator doing that. And if we think we've got a strong enough case to defend against it, I'd just like to understand the legal position on that.
Officers, if they want to clarify any of the points.
We may come back to you, but I think in principle, to the question of who would have a problem with it or an issue with it, I suppose if there was enforcement action, say a prosecution being taken against a company or an individual, they might take issue with that. And regardless of the evidence or how strong the case was, if there's been an abusive process, so for example, if the correct authority had not brought the prosecution, then they may have something to say in terms of abusive process. But in terms of cross and coordination across boroughs, that's something to be looked at. Boroughs do cooperate around taxi licensing, but if the correct authority has not brought the prosecution, then there is scope for challenge, and it wouldn't be around the merits of the evidence, it would be around process. So that's where it may come. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Okay, right, thanks. Councillor Hilton, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to everyone who's come tonight. I think it's quite astounding to see at 2 consecutive meetings I've been to, the strength of feeling and the way it's been organised. And, I congratulate you and your representatives from the union on doing that. And I think the one thing we'd like to say is we hear you. Tim's been on the council since a few years, and I used to be on the council, as my colleagues, I keep reminding my colleagues, I've never been on licensing, so I've had a bit of a crash course. I know about the taxi policy, and I know that the important thing is that we safeguard and public protection is our priority for both the residents, and we have to ensure that the law is being adhered to throughout the law. But it seems since 2014, cross-border issues has made it difficult for us. As Councillor London has just explained, there's different issues we can look at. But there are a number of things hopefully we can look at without prejudging the investigation. I think we could look at how Gatwick Airport themselves see the whole relationship between them and Uber. It sounds like I was a bit surprised to hear about I didn't know about the advertising part of things, but as far as I'm concerned, they should have a reasonable idea of the licensing laws, and hopefully they'll be looking at that themselves. I hope also that TfL, we look at the relation between TfL and that particular provider. And lastly, probably most importantly, without prejudicing the ongoing investigation, I hope we would look at the whole issue raised about the 1976 Local Government Miscellaneous Orders Act. And hopefully hopefully some of the recommendations we'll be putting tonight, hopefully, whatever they are, we'll address some of those concerns. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Councillor Jagger, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally understand the concerns that have been raised by the drivers here tonight, and it's clearly not a satisfactory situation at all. But I would like to reassure any residents that get to watch this that all local authorities now have a standardised licensing regime, and the standards are very, very similar across all boroughs. And so residents should not be worried about their safety. And I'm surprised that it's been raised in this way by some members, because I don't want residents worrying like this, because the standards, you know, the training, the standards are being brought into line. So I understand from officers that if a vehicle is licensed and the driver is licensed and the booking is taken in one place, all of those things are under one authority, then that is actually a legal booking. It's not illegal, it is legal. I absolutely understand, I absolutely understand that the ranking at the Gatwick Airport is not legal. I understand that. But then it is the Gatwick Airport, in my opinion, that seems to be flouting this rule, because they are charging you guys to be there, to run Gatwick cars, but they are also allowing Uber to do the same. I don't understand that, and I don't understand how that situation... I understand that they must, it's private land, so they must... Sorry, as I understood it, it was they were allowing the situation. Sorry, I'm speaking. So I understand that they're allowing. If that is not the case, then I will be, pushing that point with the licensing officers going forward, because I thought that was the case. Right. Okay. So
Thank you.
I still think that Gatwick Airport Authority seems to be having some role in this situation, and I think we ought to be.
Please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Please.
I said that.
Please.
I said that I will be. If that is not the case, and you have cleared, if that is not the case, I will be finding out from officers why that Uber are there, and because it's clearly not fair. It's clearly not fair, and I understand it's not fair, and I really do understand your position in that. But I was under the impression that once you're inside Gatwick Airport, you get charged by Gatwick Airport for being there. But maybe that's.
Please.
So that's all I was going to say. Is the position of Gatwick Airport in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers?
Are there any other speakers? Okay. Councillor Jones, you want to come back? No.
Thank you, Chair. I think that the discussion has probably brought to focus 4 different recommendations that I would suggest that we make tonight, Chair, and I will be looking for a seconder to each of them. The recommendations would be, first of all, to ask officers to ensure that the investigation is conducted as speedily as possible. Secondly, to request that the Chair of Licensing writes to Gatwick Airport Limited to express the committee's concerns over the issues raised at today's committee meeting, and request that the airport engages with licensing officers to ensure that provision made for licensed vehicles at the airport is compliant with licensing law. Thirdly, request that the Chair of Licensing Rights to Transport for London to express the committee's concern over the allegations being made at Gatwick Airport and ask that they visit more frequently to undertake enforcement and or authorise our licensing officers to act on their behalf. And finally, to request that the Chair of Licensing, that's you, Chair, writes to the Department of Transport expressing concern over how the current licensing regime is making it increasingly hard to address licensing breaches and requesting that the law be revisited to improve the protections, including the problems caused by cross-border licensing. Happy to read them again if anyone would like them.
No. Councillor Crowe.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the proposed recommendations are certainly not unreasonable, but I'm just a little bit surprised that they've been tabled, given that I had corresponded previously with the head of governance, asking, because this meeting in itself is quite unusual, as to what we can potentially do and what the potential outcomes from this meeting would be. And I have the email in front of me that it was either we could note the concerns or not to note the concerns, which for me would seem a bit odd, but that those were the two possible options. So I wasn't aware that we were actually able to put forward other recommendations, or else I would have potentially looked to do so myself.
Recommendation, they are undermining or jeopardizing the investigation we are taking. So,
can I suggest we just ask Councillor Jones to repeat them one by one?
yeah. So I just request Councillor Jones to please repeat those again.
I'll be happy to, Chair. I don't believe any of the recommendations I've put forward are out of order. First, ask officers to ensure the investigation is conducted as speedily as possible. Right. Second, request that the Chair of Licensing Rights to Gatwick Airport Limited to express the committee's concerns over the issues raised at today's committee meeting, and request that the airport engages with licensing officers to ensure that provision made for licensed vehicles at the airport is compliant with licensing law. I mean, the third, well, Third would be, yes.
Thanks. I'm just wondering whether, because did you say the council to write to Gal? Was it or the chair? Chair. I just wondered whether that might be slightly premature in terms of the investigation, because we don't know. We haven't had confirmation.
Well, Chair, I think we could be concerned about the allegations that have been raised at the meeting today. I don't think that's inappropriate, personally. So it's up to the committee, I think, to...
We are just raising concerns,
request that the Chair of Licensing Rights to Gatwick Airport Limited to express the committee's concern over the issues raised at today's committee meeting, and requests that the airport engages with licensing officers to ensure that provision made for licensed vehicles at the airport is compliant with licensing law. Right.
Yeah.
Please.
Is there any? I'll maybe ask the committee if there are any comments on that number two.
Number three.
No, Chair. Just ask if there are any comments on recommendation 2.
Are there any comments on recommendation?
Yeah, I've been putting my hand up for ages. I think I'm up now, not you. I can't, quite honestly, I can't see the point of coming to a pointless meeting. Let's make it a meeting that's got a point. And the thing is that we as members in this town are policymakers. We have a right to take a decision on something, and we have a right to take a position on something, and that is our democratic right to do that, and I think we should do that. What Michael's outlining is a policy from elected members that we wish to put forward to the government authorities to show that we are concerned about what's going on. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that's what we should be doing. So let's make this meeting a worthwhile meeting, give it some bones. I would now like to formally second Michael's motion.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe,
Thank you.
No, just Councillor Crowe.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was happy to second the recommendation as well, but Councillor Mullins has beaten me to it, so that's fine. But it was interesting that it looks to be like there's been a little bit of confirming amongst some members, but not others, interestingly, before the meeting. Thank you.
So, Councillor Russell.
Councillor Russell, please.
Yeah, I think the point might be largely superfluous now, but I think sharing concerns that have been raised here tonight and previously is not amiss. The strength of feeling demonstrated by the people that have turned up at the last full council meeting and tonight, there is absolutely nothing wrong with us, and through the chair, sharing these concerns and asking for a response from Gatwick Airport.
Recommendation 2 is fine. Recommend.
Councillor Burgess.
I just want to check, is Councillor Mullins seconding all of them, or do you want different people? Yes, okay, that's fine, because I'm sure Councillor Crowe must...
No, he doesn't need to. I've done it. Okay.
So we have a vote on this?
So I'll just come.
Yeah, okay.
No. Just to confirm, I think members of the committee are happy with recommendation 2, and there's no concerns with 3 and 4. So if Councillor Mullins has seconded, I think, Chair, if you want to put it to a vote now.
Okay. All that who support these recommendations?
Wouldn't it be nice if we had both sides, one forwarding and one seconding? I just feel, equality. So that's just.
Councillor Jones has moved it. Unless Councillor Mullins wants to withdraw his
Councillor Jones has moved it, and Councillor Mullins, he has seconded, unless he wants to withdraw. Okay, so all that in favour, please. No.
Chair, we also should say we know. I think.
Should we go
do
do
this?
this?
Should ask members if they want to still do the recommendation to note consent.
No.
So just go from
So if the committee wants to note the concerns raised today as well, are we all agreement on that?
Propose that. Someone could propose.
Can someone please propose this? Okay. Councillor Khan proposed and Councillor Crowe second. All that in favour? Okay. So is that noted?
Yep.
Yes. Item 6, supplemental agenda. There is no supplemental agenda today, so the business of the committee is concluded. Please will the committee members note that the new date for the next meeting of the licensing committee will be on Monday, the 5th of August. I declare the meeting closed at 20:12. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.